You know, I'm like a character. I don't feel often when I meet people.
The dream of a suburban teen actor was never supposed to include a seat at the head of a billion-dollar table, yet he managed to turn emotional vulnerability into the most valuable currency in music history. He didn't just break the rules of hip-hop, he executed a cold-blooded, high-stakes takeover that transformed Drake from a television sidekick into an undisputed global monopoly. From the peculiar luxury of his $100 million embassy mansion to the ruthless business maneuvers that built the OVO empire, we are pulling back the curtain on the most polarizing career in the world. This is the calculated evolution of the man who redefined what it means to be a mogul. Aubrey Drake Graham was born in 1986 in Toronto, Canada, a city that didn't announce itself loudly or demand attention. It moved quietly, cold, patient, observant, much like the boy growing up inside it. Toronto wasn't New York. It wasn't Los Angeles. It was a place that waited, offering no shortcuts and no guarantees. Raised at the intersection of two cultures, Aubrey learned early what it meant to exist between worlds. He watched more than he spoke, listened more than he demanded, learning how to find balance in a space that rarely explained itself. His father, Dennis Graham, was a Memphis drummer, steeped in blues and soul, rhythm pulsing through his veins. His mother, Sandy, was a Jewish-Canadian schoolteacher, grounded, disciplined, and fiercely devoted. Music lived in one parent, structure in the other. Aubrey stood between them, absorbing both. That balance shattered early. When he was 5, his parents separated, and his father returned to the US, leaving behind a silence that lingered like unfinished music. From then on, it was just Aubrey and his mother, navigating life together. She carried the weight. He felt it. Money was scarce, but resolve never was. They lived in Forest Hill, a wealthy neighborhood that never quite felt like home. Surrounded by privilege, Aubrey felt misplaced, too different, too mixed, too quietly observant. He didn't belong to one box or another. He existed in the margins. That isolation settled into him, sharpening his awareness like a blade. He watched. He listened. He learned how people hide who they are. At 13, something shifted. Standing at his bar mitzvah, microphone in hand, Aubrey performed. And for the first time, he felt seen. It wasn't fame, but it was recognition. Brief and electric, like lightning touching ground. A spark was lit. Soon after, acting opened a door. As a teenager, he landed a role on Degrassi, The Next Generation, playing Jimmy Brooks, a character whose life was abruptly altered. The role brought visibility and stability. His paychecks didn't fund dreams, they helped keep the lights on. Acting became survival, not a destination. Music, however, was the quiet constant. Drake didn't enter music quietly. He surged, like a rising tide that starts unnoticed and ends up reshaping the entire coastline. In 2009, So Far Gone arrived not as a mixtape, but as a confession. Records like Best I Ever Had and Successful moved through the culture like whispers that refused to stay quiet. Vulnerability became his weapon, and with it came a deal with Young Money, proof that hip-hop had just made room for someone different. When Thank Me Later debuted at #1 in 2010, Drake wasn't asking for validation anymore. He had it. Take Care followed, heavy with emotion, lingering like rain that refuses to stop falling. That honesty earned him his first Grammy Award, signaling a shift in rap's emotional language. By the time Nothing Was the Same dropped, the title felt final. The ascent was complete. Drake had crossed over from rising star to cultural force. From there, the pace accelerated. In 2015, he released 2 separate projects that both debuted at #1, crashing the charts back-to-back like runaway waves. Then came Views in 2016, an era-defining moment. One Dance traveled the globe like a heartbeat, and Drake became unavoidable. Awards followed in clusters: Billboard Music Awards, American Music Awards, MTV VMAs, and eventually the crown of Billboard Artist of the Decade, a title reserved for dominance, not moments. With Scorpion, numbers stopped behaving normally. Over 1 billion streams in a single week. God's Plan not only ruled the charts, it won him another Grammy, affirming that commercial power and acclaim could coexist. Album after album, More Life, Certified Lover Boy, Honestly, Nevermind, Her Loss, continued the run, each release like another chapter added before anyone could catch their breath. Drake's trophy shelf grew heavy. 5 Grammy wins, over 50 Grammy nominations, dozens of Billboard Music Awards, countless AMAs, BET Awards, and Juno Awards. But the most telling achievement couldn't be placed on a mantle. Drake became the most streamed artist in history, his catalog moving endlessly across platforms, languages, and borders, like a current that never slows. He didn't chase trends. He absorbed them, reshaped them, and reflected them back like a mirror that never cracked. He turned melody into leverage, emotion into dominance, consistency into legacy. And even now, his career doesn't feel complete, only continuous. Love never arrived quietly for him. It came surrounded by timing, distance, and the weight of being watched. Before fame complicated everything, there was Keshia Chante in the early 2000s, his first love, rooted in innocence and possibility. That chapter stayed frozen, like a memory untouched by success. As his career began to rise, short but meaningful connections followed. In 2009, he briefly dated SZA, a youthful, fleeting bond that later resurfaced in lyrics. Not with bitterness, but with understanding. Then came Rihanna, the relationship that hovered over his life like a tide that refused to recede. From 2009 to 2018, they circled each other, collaborating, separating, reconnecting. In 2016, Drake declared his love for her on a global stage. But timing proved unforgiving. By 2018, it was over. Not in flames, but in distance, leaving behind songs that still feel unfinished. In 2011, Drake was quietly linked to Serena Williams, a connection defined more by presence than labels. Though brief, it lingered, resurfacing again around 2015 before fading for good. Shortly after, Jennifer Lopez entered his life in late 2016, a romance that flashed bright and disappeared just as fast. Intense, public, and short-lived. Everything changed in 2017 with Sophie Brousseau. Their relationship was brief, but its impact was permanent. From it came his son, Adonis, born in October 2017. Fatherhood reshaped Drake, turning a moment of uncertainty into purpose. Romance gave way to responsibility, and love took on a quieter, steadier meaning. In the years that followed, Drake's connections, Uriah Smith, Hailey Bieber, Kylie Jenner, Johanna Leia, came and went like reflections in passing windows. The pattern held. He loved deeply, but rarely stayed. Fame distorted intimacy, making trust fragile and permanence elusive. Still, he never stopped reaching. Drake turned every relationship into emotion, every ending into reflection. His personal life became a map of longing, proof that even at the center of attention, loneliness can echo loudly, like a man calling out into crowded rooms. He kept searching, not for perfection, but for something real enough to survive when the music finally goes quiet. That's when success turned into money, and money into power. Music was the spark, but ownership was the fire. At the core is his catalog. Over the span of his career, Drake has generated well over $500 million from music alone, albums, touring, publishing, and licensing. In peak years, his earnings consistently landed between $40 and $70 million annually, with certain eras pushing past $100 million. His tours alone have grossed hundreds of millions, while his publishing catalog continues to pay out like a pension fund designed for immortality. Streaming multiplied that advantage. With tens of billions of streams, Drake earns an estimated $10 to $15 million per year across platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, recurring income that stacks whether he releases new music or not. Unlike artists whose relevance fades, Drake's numbers behave like interest, small percentages on massive volume. Then he made the pivot, from performer to proprietor. With OVO Sound, Drake positioned himself on the ownership side of the industry, while OVO Lifestyle turned culture into commerce. The brand's clothing drops, collaborations, and retail partnerships generate an estimated $50 million or more annually. This wasn't merchandise. It was infrastructure built to scale. Nike didn't cut Drake a standard endorsement check. Through NOCTA, he reportedly earns tens of millions per year, structured around royalties rather than one-time fees. Less paycheck, more participation. Less image, more equity. Alcohol followed the same blueprint. Drake holds stakes in Virginia Black whiskey and Mod Selection champagne. Deals estimated to generate $10 to $15 million annually, tied to brand growth instead of appearances. The bottle wasn't the product. The margin was. Then came gambling. His partnership with Stake reset the scale entirely. The deal has been widely estimated at up to $100 million per year, making it one of the most lucrative sponsorships in entertainment. Public wins and losses may fluctuate, but the guaranteed income dwarfs the noise. High risk on camera, low risk on paper. Jets, jewelry, and cars may catch the eye, but they're symbols, not strategy. The real wealth sits underneath. Royalties that loop, brands that appreciate, equity that matures quietly. Today, Drake's estimated net worth ranges between $250 and $300 million, and that figure remains fluid, not final. Much of his money isn't parked, it's deployed. Now this is where achievement turns into architecture. When achievements stopped being moments and became milestones, he chose spaces that feel permanent. Structures that don't flex loudly, but stand unwavering, like monuments built to outlast applause. It begins in Toronto. Behind guarded gates in the bridle path rises the Embassy. What started as a $6.7 million plot of land evolved into a 50,000 square foot stronghold, now valued at nearly $100 million. This isn't a home, it's a headquarters, an NBA regulation court beneath a glass pyramid, a recording studio woven into daily life, a primary suite larger than most urban homes. Toronto isn't just where Drake lives, it's where he planted permanence, like a flag pressed deep into the ground. California tells the next chapter. In 2022, Drake stepped into the highest tier of Los Angeles real estate with a Beverly Hills estate, purchased for $75 million, spanning nearly 20 acres and over 24,000 square feet. The property stretches outward like a private kingdom. Resort pool, tennis court, panoramic city views. The asking price later reached $88 million before settling at $79 million. A reminder that even on the market, it remained untouchable. Before that, there was transition. In Hidden Hills, Drake assembled the so-called YOLO estate, multiple neighboring properties totaling roughly $20 to $25 million. It was comfortable, flashy, temporary, a sketch before the final structure, proof that growth sometimes means outgrowing the space you once dreamed of. And that's the point. Drake's homes don't just get bigger, they get deliberate, from clusters to singular landmarks, from luxury to legacy. Across Toronto and Los Angeles, his real estate footprint has reached $175 to $200 million, not as indulgence, but as architecture with intention. Each space is custom, personal, built to last, like a verse carved into marble instead of written on air. Some people measure success in awards. Drake measures it in machines. Each one marks a chapter, proof of a level reached and sealed. His collection, valued between $9 and $12 million, isn't built on excess, but precision, curated like art behind guarded glass rather than trophies piled high. At the summit sits the Bugatti Veyron Sang Noir, acquired for roughly $2.2 million. Blacked out carbon fiber, rare to the point of legend, it feels less like a vehicle and more like a presence. Still, heavy, undeniable. Nearby rests the Ferrari LaFerrari, worth $1.4 to $1.8 million, a machine so exclusive it's sold by invitation alone. Hybrid, clinical, elite, like a scalpel in a world obsessed with hammers. Where aggression gives way to composure, Drake turns to quiet authority. A bespoke Rolls-Royce Cullinan, estimated around $1 million, moves like a fortress on velvet, while the Rolls-Royce Phantom 8, priced near $650,000, glides with the patience of something that has nothing to prove. The rest of the collection fills out with intention, not clutter. Bentleys around $300,000, Maybachs climbing past $1.2 million, Lamborghinis and McLarens approaching $450,000, each chosen the way chess pieces are placed. Not displayed, no duplicates, no impulse buys, just milestones forged in metal. Beyond the obvious luxuries, he pours money into experiences meant to be lived in, worn out and absorbed. For him, luxury isn't about being seen, it's about how deeply comfort can go. It starts with rest, because even greatness needs silence. At the center of that ritual sits a $400,000 Heston's Grand Vividus bed, hand-built to last nearly a century. Layers of horsehair, wool, and cotton working together like a quiet symphony. Drake once said it makes him feel like he's floating, and the image fits. Sleep, for him, isn't rest, it's reset, like lowering the volume on the world. Then there's time, refused, reshaped. His watch collection, valued at over $5 million, turns minutes into art. Drake favors extreme pieces. Richard Mille watches priced anywhere from $300,000 to more than $2 million. One sapphire case model alone crosses the $2 million mark. So transparent it feels like wearing movement itself. These aren't clocks, they're architecture for the wrist. If watches measure time, Drake's jewelry traps emotion inside it. His most infamous piece, the previous engagement's necklace, carries a value between $10 and $13 million. 42 diamond engagement rings, 351 carats in total, 14 months of craftsmanship. Each stone marks a moment he almost committed, but didn't. Its heartbreak rendered permanent, like confessions frozen in ice. Altogether, his jewelry collection is estimated around $30 million, less fashion than archive. Memories sealed behind flawless cuts. Even his art breathes with the same intention. Drake owns a custom Bösendorfer concert grand piano designed with Takashi Murakami, one of only 3 in the world. Estimated between $400,000 and $600,000, it exists somewhere between instrument and museum piece, where music and visual art collapse into one object that refuses to be ordinary. Then there's fashion. Drake often wears custom fits and rare pieces that quietly push $50,000 to $100,000 per outfit. No labels announced, no prices explained. Luxury worn the way confidence is worn, without needing permission. What ties all of it together isn't excess, it's purpose, with a rise that loud, calm was never promised. As Drake grew from breakout star to cultural constant, controversy followed like a shadow at sunset, always close, never still. Critics questioned his authenticity, calling him too emotional, too melodic, too exposed. Clashes with Common and Joe Budden challenged his place in hip-hop, even as the sound they doubted reshaped the genre itself. Then the pressure intensified. Feuds with Meek Mill turned rivalry into spectacle. Battles with Pusha T made silence feel heavier than words. But the longest tension ran through Kendrick Lamar, 2 generational giants circling the same crown, trading subliminals and influence, splitting the culture like a fault line over who defined an era. Even alliances, including moments with Kanye West, cracked under the weight of competition. Love brought more scrutiny, online backlash added fuel, and accusations spread faster than context. Drake rarely explained himself. He absorbed the noise and kept moving. Hits landed, records fell. Like standing upright in a storm while others argue about the weather, he endured. For Drake, controversy wasn't a setback, it was the atmosphere. When you step back, the luxury isn't the story, it's the result. Drake didn't chase excess to be seen. He built a life where success could slow down, breathe, and settle in. Every indulgence reflects control, patience, and arrival. Not noise, not chaos. That's the quiet truth of his luxury. It isn't loud, it's earned. If you enjoyed this look into Drake's world, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us what journey you want next. Until then, stay elevated and we'll see you in the next one.